Okay, so get this. Today's deep dive, we're wading into lost in translation territory, but like tech world edition.
Yeah, we're talking about Jasmy. They're trying to build the future of data, ambitious stuff. But there's a catch.
A big one, right?
Huge. Their whole white paper, and it's dense, is entirely in Japanese.
Ah, so that's where the lost in translation comes in. And we're not just talking about a pamphlet here, right? This is full on tech specs.
Diagrams, the works. Even for a techie like me, it's a lot to unpack. Lucky for you guys, you've got us to break it down.
Exactly. No need to dust off that Japanese dictionary or anything. We're diving headfirst into Jasmy, figuring out what they're all about, and more importantly, why you should care.
Especially since this white paper's from April 2020, we're talking pre all the metaverse hype. Makes you wonder, are these ideas outdated or were they way ahead of their time?
Okay, so let's jump right in. Got to start with their slogan, right? Every good tech company needs one.
Oh, absolutely. It's their whole ethos distilled. Ready for this? You're killing me. I got as far as Hugh, and that was it. Lay it on me in English. What are they saying?
Basically, it's protect the data that individuals should have the right to own and realize data democracy by building a decentralized and democratic world.
Data democracy, I like the sound of that, has a ring to it. But what does it even mean? Like, are we talking voting on data rights or something? Not exactly. See, Jasmy's starting point is pointing out the problems with how we handle data right now. Every time you're online, you're handing over data. But how much control do you actually have over it? Jasmy's saying there's this lack of transparency, lack of control for users, not to mention all the privacy concerns we've got.
And there's the companies, they're struggling too, right? Trying to keep all that data safe.
Absolutely. Data breaches are a nightmare. The security costs, compliance, it's a mess. Jasmy says these problems, they all come down to one thing, centralization. Our current systems, it's like all our data is in one place, vulnerable.
So too many eggs in one basket, and everyone wants those eggs. How's Jasmy saying we fix that?
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting. They've got a two-pronged approach, and it could totally change how we interact with, well, the digital world. First up, edge computing. So instead of sending all your data to some company's servers, what if it was processed right there on your device?
Wait, so my phone's like a mini data center.
Think of it like your own little data vault, your info processed and stored locally on your phone, your laptop, even your smart fridge.
Okay, I'm intrigued, but what's the upside for me? Why should I care where my data is being processed?
Well, for one, speed. Imagine how much faster things would load, smoother streaming, no more buffering. Edge computing could make your digital life way less annoying. And then there's the security aspect. Remember how we said those centralized systems are vulnerable? With edge computing, your data's spread out, way harder to target.
Okay, so that's one side of it, but what about the data itself? If it's not going to some mega server, where does it end up?
That's where Jasmy's second prong comes in: decentralized networks and storage. Like, picture that personal data vault we talked about, but now imagine it scattered across a whole network of devices. So your data isn't all in one place, makes it near impossible for hackers to just grab it all at once.
Okay, so we're talking Fort Knox level security for my data now. I'm liking this. But this edge computing, decentralized networks, it's still kind of up in the air for me. How does this actually work in the real world? Give me something I can wrap my head around.
All right, think of it this way. Jasmy gives you two main tools, SKC and SG.
SKC, SG. Sounds kind of like a secret government agency or something.
Not quite, but they do act like your own personal data bodyguards. So SKC, that stands for Secure Knowledge Communicator.
Secure knowledge communicator? Catchy. And what does that do for me?
Imagine it like this, a digital lockbox for your data. You decide what data to share, who you share it with, even how long it's all under your control. No more blindly agreeing to those terms and conditions that are a mile long.
Hold on, I'm picturing this. Let's say I'm online shopping and they want my email for their newsletter. With this SKC thing, I can choose to share it or just say, nah, I'm good.
Exactly. You're in the driver's seat now. And it's not just a yes or no thing. You could share your email but say, only use this for order updates. Don't be sending me any of that other marketing stuff.
Okay, I see how that puts users back in control. I like it. But what about SG, my other bodyguard? What's that one about?
Oh, right. So SG, that's Smart Guardian. Think about all the devices you've got, your phone, laptop, maybe even a whole smart home setup. SG, it acts like a conductor. It connects all those devices to your SKC.
So everything's linked up.
Exactly. Means that data coming from your smart fridge, your fitness tracker, it's all protected by that same digital lockbox we talked about.
So no more worries about my smart toaster selling my breakfast preferences to the highest bidder.
Precisely. It's about creating a secure ecosystem you're in control of, the data flowing between your devices and the rest of the world.
Okay, so this is all sounding amazing in theory, but I need to bring this back down to earth for a sec. Can you give me some real-world examples? How would this actually play out in my everyday life?
Sure, imagine you have to call customer service, right? We've all been there, stuck explaining the same issue over and over to different people. With SKC, you could just share the relevant data straight from your account, your order history, past interactions, whatever it is, right to the agent.
So no more repeating my credit card number like 5 times. I'm sold. Okay, that makes sense. But what about work? I deal with a ton of sensitive information all the time.
Well, picture this a workplace where instead of being bombarded with all these restrictions and security protocols, you've got more flexibility and control. With what Jasmy's talking about, you could collaborate on projects, share files securely, all without compromising sensitive data.
So more security, but less of the digital red tape. I like that. What else you got?
Remember how we were talking about SG connecting all your devices? Think about your smart home. With Jasmy, you could control your devices, share data with, say, trusted energy providers to be more efficient, or even give delivery services access to your smart lock, but all on your terms, securely and openly.
This is starting to sound like a whole new way of doing things online, but
Yeah.
this all kind of relies on the idea that data is valuable, right?
Yeah.
So where do companies fit into all of this? They're not just going to become these benevolent data guardians overnight, are they? That's the big question, isn't it? Companies, they love data. It's valuable, right? So how do they fit into this whole Jasmy vision?
That's the really interesting part. They're talking about a data marketplace. Imagine instead of companies just taking your data, they have to earn it.
Oh, now you've got my attention. How would that even work?
Sure. Think of it like this, companies. They need data, right? To make their products better, tailor their services, even just to understand their customers. In this data marketplace, they could get access to your data, but not for free and not without your say-so. You'd decide what you share, who gets to see it, what they can even use it for.
So I'm in control, but there's got to be something in it for me.
Right, exactly. Your data has value, and Jasmy's saying you should be compensated for sharing it. Could be direct payments, discounts on the services you use, even donations to causes you care about.
Okay, I see the upside for users. More control, more transparency, maybe even some cash in my pocket. But let's be real for a second. Is this just a new way for companies to get what they want, just with a price tag slapped on it now?
That's a valid point. It's definitely a concern. Creating a data marketplace that's actually fair, that's the challenge. The white paper, it gives a framework, but the details, that's where things get tricky.
So what needs to happen for this to actually work? For it to be a data democracy, like they're saying, not just, a way for the big companies to cash in even more?
Well, for one, we need some ground rules. If companies are going to access user data, especially if they're profiting from it, there have to be safeguards in place to make sure it's fair to stop exploitation.
And what about transparency? How do we know if companies are playing by the rules?
That's huge. Jasmy talks about using blockchain, not just for the security we talked about before, but to create a record of every data transaction. So you could actually see who accessed your data, when, and what they used it for.
Now, that's the kind of transparency I'm talking about. But this all hinges on people understanding they have a choice, feeling like they can actually control their data.
It's a big shift, for sure, for individuals, for companies, everyone. We've got to move away from this data extraction mindset and move towards something more balanced, more collaborative.
So where do we go from here? What's the takeaway for our listeners, the people at home, trying to make sense of all this?
You know, Jasmy's white paper, even though it's from a few years back, it raises a really important question. What if the future of data wasn't about companies taking, but about people choosing to share? Imagine that, a future where you've got control, where your data isn't just something being mined, it's an asset you control.
It's exciting, but also a little bit daunting, right? I mean, we've seen how fast technology can outrun our ability to handle it ethically.
Oh, absolutely. But that's why conversations like this are so important. We've got to ask the tough questions now. What are the benefits? What are the risks? And how do we build a future where technology actually empowers us instead of exploiting us?
Well, that's been quite a deep dive. We started with the Japanese white paper, and we ended up talking about the future of data and what role we want to play in it.
And the best part is, this is just the beginning of the conversation.
Exactly. If Jasmy's got you thinking about your own data, head over to our website. We've got links to the Jasmy white paper. And don't worry, there's an English version. Plus some really interesting articles we found about data privacy and all that.
Let us know what you think. Is this the future you want? What questions do you have? The future of data, it's being written right now, and we all need to be part of the conversation.
Until next time, keep diving.